If you have any questions, there are a few of us wandering around here with, oh.
I lost your tag.
I don't have it. I usually have a thing around my neck. Anyway, I have just one announcement about next week's presentation. It's actually a great presentation on quilts by, supposedly initially by Dick Cleveland, who for reasons of health had to bow out. However, a colleague of his and a co-author of a book on quilts with him, Donna Bister, will be here. And she's a very well-known quilt expert, so I think it will be a wonderful presentation. We're lucky to have had her. Secondly, as you all know, please shut off your phones, and then we'll be ready. So I am very pleased to introduce our speaker today. I first met Charity Clark over 25 years ago. She was fresh out of college and a policy analyst in Governor Dean's office. And so during the legislative sessions, I was working in education policy, and we had the occasion to work together during the legislative session on almost a daily basis. However, her career took a turn. After that, she went to law school and then started her new career in New York City and in Vermont. But she is a Vermonter born and bred, and she returned to her home state, and she joined the AG's office, the Attorney General's office, in 2014 as an assistant in the Public Protection Division. Later, she was appointed the AG's Chief of Staff, which I think was a new position, the first person to hold that position, and she served as Chief of Staff between 2018 and 2022. After that, later that year, she was elected Attorney General, and her Vermont's first female Attorney General, and right, and began what has been a very notable and active period of public protection, starting with her inauguration in January 2023. The cases she has brought vary from assuring the safety of Vermont's waterways and schools when she sued Monsanto for PCB contamination, to care for the mental health of our young people, young users of Meta's Instagram, to challenging a ban on drugs to assure women access to safe and effective abortion. A parent herself, she has championed the cause of working parents and completed her goal of achieving the status of breastfeeding-friendly employer early in her term as AG. Clark's resume is long and impressive, and you will hear about many of her accomplishments directly from her as she talks about defending the rule of law in our current environment. Please welcome Charity Clark.
Thank you. It is so great to be here with all of you, and I'm especially thankful to be in this gorgeous space where I've never been somehow, despite my many years of working in Montpelier. It's so beautiful and holy, honestly. The organ alone is like a work of art, so really, really special to be here. I want to begin by telling you a little bit about the Attorney General's office. I started running for the first time in 2022, and what I quickly learned is that no one knows what the Attorney General does. So I would be trying to convince people to vote for me, and they would be very shy and not be a little embarrassed and not want to tell me that they had no idea what the Attorney General did. So I'm going to let you in on this big secret about what the Attorney General does, and you'll have that, and you'll always feel confident when you're voting for the Attorney General. The Attorney General is essentially the lawyer to the state. Just like corporations and families and people have lawyers, the state has a lawyer too. It's me. And the Attorney General is the largest office of any of the electeds. We have 150 people working at the Attorney General's office. 100 of them are lawyers, 50 are, paralegals or the business office or other workers. And we provide a wide variety of like services, types of services, but even kinds of law that you practice. There's two basic kinds of law where you go to court, and transactional law where you're more focused on like paperwork and that kind of thing. And we do all of it. We do civil law, which is about money. We do criminal law, which is about crimes against the people. And we have a variety of divisions, and some of them you've never heard of and never will, because they do that kind of work where they're serving we call them a client agency, so the Department of Taxes. By the way, fun fact, the Department of Taxes have the happiest lawyers. I don't know why. They all are so at peace, they're happy. I think it's because it's very mathy, and there's not a lot of death and destruction in the Department of Taxes. We have a bunch of lawyers. I think our largest division is at the Agency of Human Services. We provide a variety of lawyers there. And we also have lawyers who, the client is kind of me. It's the Attorney General. There's no client we're serving. We get to prosecute people who have a toxic waste dump in their backyard in violation of environmental laws, or people and companies who violate the Consumer Protection Act, and I will talk more about that in a little bit. We also defend the state when the state is sued. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with a recent wonderful piece of legislation, in my opinion, the Climate Superfund Act, and we were promptly sued by the fossil fuel company who thought, we don't like this act and we think it's unconstitutional, and it's the Attorney General who will defend the state. We did the same thing with recent gun safety legislation and other pieces of legislation. We defend the state when the state is sued. We defend state workers when they're sued in their work capacity. So I myself am sued from time to time. I was sued, I think my first time I was the named defendant was regarding our part of our abortion rights law here in Vermont included a law related to lying to people at a crisis pregnancy center, and we were sued, and that case is over, but and Sarah Copeland Hands as Secretary of State was sued. I got to call her and tell her the exciting news that we'd been sued, and we would defend her and me. We also have a civil rights unit. The civil rights unit sounds like it does a lot of big, lofty things, and it does really important things, but it's basically about employment discrimination. And since I'm just throwing these facts at you, I'll tell you a not so fun fact, but if you had asked me before I got the statistics, what is the category you hear about the most when it comes to discrimination in employment context, I think I would say probably gender. Maybe that's because I'm a woman, but it's actually disability. Consistently, that's the #1 most common complaint that we hear about in the Civil Rights Unit. But if you ever feel that you or someone you know is being discriminated against at work, please, we have a hotline. You could call our office and see if there's an investigation that needs to be made. When it comes to criminal work, Vermont does things in a very unique way, and I think it's because we haven't changed it really for a couple hundred years. Our criminal system really is focused on the county level. So every county has a state's attorney, a county prosecutor. You elect a 4-year term, and they are primarily responsible for public safety in their counties. And when the Montpelier Police Department has a case that they are charging, they will refer that not to the Attorney General, but to the Washington County State's Attorney. And that is our system. However, the Attorney General also has jurisdiction in every single county, so we work throughout Vermont as well. And we kind of have like preeminent jurisdiction, so the statute says if the Attorney General believes that the public interest requires it, she will take over whatever case, civil or criminal. I think we pretty much do most of the civil cases as it is, but the criminal cases are often done at the county level. Our office has our own law enforcement agency, a teensy tiny law enforcement agency called the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and we have several investigators and officers, and then we have 2 dogs. And the dogs have been trained to smell the off-gassing of electronic storage devices, like an iPhone or a thumb drive or an external hard drive. So, and we do like 100, 200 something searches every year. And it's very efficient because we walk in, we can perform the search, and then we can go with the dog and say, do we miss anything here? Or if we didn't find anything, and the dog, I mean, I have so many stories about these incredible dogs, who, by the way, are total goofballs. I mean, one of them literally was supposed to be a seeing eye dog, and he flunked out because he was, as his handler said to me, if he smelled a hot dog cart, he would be like, come on, we can make it across the street. So they're absolute goofballs, so they're the best. And then in addition, we have the Medicaid fraud unit. Medicaid fraud is something, you have to have that unit if you want to accept Medicaid dollars from the federal government, which we do. What would we do without our federal dollars coming back to us to help us pay for health care? So we have that unit, and they do civil and criminal. Really, they're protecting vulnerable Vermonters who are in a long-term care facility or being cared for somehow using Medicaid dollars, and we have that unit. They have investigators as well. So as you can see, it's a real variety of work. I don't think I've forgotten anything tremendously huge, but I'm feeling like I might have, and I'm feeling bad already. I want to spend a little time talking about our consumer cases. The consumer protection, now, okay, so true confession, I came from the consumer unit, so of course I'm low-key obsessed with consumer law and the opportunities that consumer law presents. The largest case in Vermont history was by the Attorney General. I am looking around, every single one, everybody here was, well, except my staff person who came, was alive and remembers this. Sorry, Carly, I peeped you out. Everyone else was here, and we remember in 1998, the attorneys general across the country, including General Sorrell, the man who hired me in 2014, settled with major tobacco companies. And I can't even imagine the other states, but in our state, we get roughly $25 million every year. Every year, $25 million because of that settlement, in perpetuity, as long as people keep smoking. In fact, sad story, in the middle of the pandemic, we got more money because more people relapsed and started smoking again. So, but it's corrected, don't worry, it was just a blip, everyone got their acts together, thank goodness. But so now, since 1998, I mean, we're pushing like $800-something million that we've gotten from this case. What is the Consumer Protection Act? This magical act that helped us with tobacco and with a bunch of other cases I'm going to tell you about. The Consumer Protection Act essentially says you can't lie in the marketplace. So I can't say this electric blue suit turns into a rocket ship. No, wait, I could say that because everyone would know that's not true. I couldn't say this electric blue suit is made of silk when it's actually made of polyester. I'm confessing. It's made of polyester, and I can't lie and say it's made of silk, and then you test it, and you're thinking, you told me it was silk, I paid 3 times as much, it's polyester. You can't do that. We all instinctively know that as consumers. The Consumer Protection Act, because of that, you're protecting consumers, but you're protecting the marketplace, because we're not going to buy anything. We're not going to buy the electric blue silk suit if we don't really believe we're getting what we paid for. We're all consumers, so it's familiar to us. There's been many cases over the years that have been brought under that act, and the tobacco case is by far the biggest and most famous, I would say. Some of the cases that I have brought since becoming Attorney General, I was sworn in January of 2023, include the case against Meta and TikTok. These are social media companies that have created a platform that is designed to addict children to their app, and they have all these tricks. Who here is on Instagram or TikTok? I am too. Not as many as you see with the younger crowd. Okay, who here is on Facebook? Okay, maybe a little more. So those of you on Instagram or TikTok, or who have kind of dabbled, and you might see this on Facebook too, you know these tricks. Okay, one of them is what's called ethereal content. It's content that goes away. So Instagram has this thing called stories, and you can post to your stories, and it's like a fun picture of you and your friend hiking or something. But it vanishes after 24 years. 24 hours. 24 years would be better. And meanwhile, you're the consumer, right, going through your Instagram thinking, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out, miss my friends at the party or miss my friends at the whatever. And so you keep you keep checking into the app. Also, to make sure you check in, they send you notifications. I always turn mine off because I don't want to be interrupted because I'm kind of like a curmudgeonly Vermonter. I got to do my thing. I don't want to be interrupted all the time. But it's notifying you, ooh, Edie Miller sent you something, don't you want to look? Edie Miller posted something, don't you want to look? And it's like, yeah, that sounds fun, you want to look, turn those off. The other one this one really gets me is when you're scrolling through your thing, it gives you a little tease of the next thing, you know? And so you're like, oh, Edie Miller looks like she had a barbecue. Like, I want to scroll up so I can look at that, right? And you just keep going, and the next thing you know, you're like, what time is it? What day is it? Who am I? So that's all by design. They hire psychologists to do that. So and when it comes to Instagram, I think it was like 47 other attorneys general. I mean, Republicans and Democrats don't always agree on stuff. So when we do, we get excited. This was one of those things. TikTok is even worse. I'm glad that not many of you are on TikTok because it is even worse. And we use the Consumer Protection Act. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, hey, Charity, who's the consumer? I don't pay for Instagram. You do pay for Instagram with your data. Not with your money, with your data. That is why Instagram has the most devilishly accurate ads. I'm getting all of the middle-aged lady skincare ads. I'm getting all the Vermont outdoor wear ads, and they totally have my number, and it's kind of embarrassing. I feel very, very attacked and seen at the same time. And they know all this about me because they're collecting my data. They know when I linger over the Ursa Major skincare products or the Skeeta hat or whatever. They know that, and they're giving me more of it because they want to make more money. And really, we experience social media as a social experience, but it's not. It's an advertising company. That's how they make their money. We're basically we're kind of the product they're selling. They're selling access to us and to our data, which will help the ads be the most effective and accurate. Wow, I could go on and on this topic. Next case. We sued pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs, for driving up the costs of prescription drugs while they were telling us they were lowering the cost of prescription drugs. And all of these cases have a long journey, by the way, because the bad guys, the people we sued, they try to delay, they file all the motions and stuff. So I sue and then years go by, so we're still waiting. The last one that this is not necessarily a consumer case, but I have it listed, so I'm gonna mention it. Monsanto created a product called PCBs, and then they contaminated Vermont's waterways and our schools with the PCBs, and they knew that the PCBs were very, very bad. And in fact, one example in the lawsuit that we found was they had like a cafeteria or a building, and they were like, no one go to this building in their own plant because it was so contaminated. But did they tell the world? No, they just sold their product and said, put this everywhere, and we did. It's in a lot of like ceilings of a window, things like that. So we have a statewide testing program, and that allowed the Attorney General to be the one to bring a lawsuit to try to recoup money. So we're in the middle of that lawsuit as well. And a lawsuit that I didn't bring, but I wanted to mention because I think it really crystallizes, especially the Consumer Protection Act. Our consumer laws in this country are more protective and more strong than our environmental laws. So we sued fossil fuel companies on a greenwashing theory. The theory that they were telling us, oh, our products are better for the environment. What? No, man, we know you cause global warming. We're not falling for this. And Vermonters especially, with seventh generation, you think about, we were on the vanguard of all of these environmentally friendly products. And we really do have a kind of green outlook when we are shopping. We want to buy the product that is more environmental. So if someone's lying to us and telling us the suit is made of silk, which is more environmentally friendly, I imagine, than polyester, which is plastic, you know, that matters, and that's gonna inform our choice, and that is a violation of the Consumer Protection Act. So the Consumer Protection Act is like, it's really everywhere, and it always comes up when I'm giving these talks, because there's so many of our cases are grounded in it. And also, it's so relatable because we're all consumers, so I find it to be such an interesting law. I will add a footnote to say that another reason why I am so into the Consumer Protection Act is because I grew up in southern Vermont, and my family had a grocery store, Clark's Market in Londonderry, and I worked there starting when I was 10, and stocking shelves, and when you get to be 16, you could check people out, so that's what I did. I sorted bottles, I helped in the bakery, And I literally grew up like in a marketplace. So no surprise, I'm like obsessed with consumer issues, and I found all of this so fascinating. And I think nowadays the marketplace is so largely online, not necessarily Montpelier, because Montpelier has a really strong, great downtown, but in many places the marketplace is online, and it's so easy to find examples of violations of the Consumer Protection Act in the online marketplace, and scammers are everywhere, and we don't want to destabilize the online marketplace the way, for example, robocalls and scam robocalls destabilized the marketplace on the phone. Remember, someone would used to, in the 80s, like when I was a kid, people would call and actually sell you stuff and you'd buy it on the phone, and no more. That never happens. We don't even answer our phones because of scams. Okay, I'm going to shift now, and I'm going to talk about our work protecting democracy during these troubling times. During these troubling times, the Attorney General, of course, being the lawyer to the state, it is my job to protect the Constitution of the United States, and in fact, that's in the oath of office. The last thing, I have to swear all of our assistant attorneys general in, there's like 100, and I swear a new one in like every few weeks, so I almost have it memorized, and at the end it says, like, I swear to support the United States Constitution. When we joined the Union, we were, of course, not in the original 13 colonies. Our rabble-rousing forebears, the Green Mountain Boys, wouldn't have it. We were our own republic, and when we finally joined and we're like, okay, you begged, you pleaded, we'll join, we're amazing. We had a system, and the system was 3 branches of government, and there was federalism, and the sovereign states had rights and powers, and we had this whole system we all learned about and have been living all these years, and that's the system that needs to stay the same. We are not pretending that the president has powers he doesn't have, and that has been the starting point from literally day one, January 20th, 2025. That is what I've been doing, living and breathing practically every day since then. It's frankly exhausting, but very motivating. I feel so privileged to be the one in this position. I know a lot of people feel helpless, not me. I woke up the day after the election in 2024, literally threw the covers off and said, let's go, except there was a word in between let's and go that I won't say here. I was ready. I was very ready. So at this point, I have sued Donald Trump's administration 42 times. And I know that other state attorneys general, combined with nonprofits and other groups, have sued a lot more than that. And it's been kind of a force multiplier. And I don't sue on every issue I don't like. I only sue on the issues where there's been a violation of federal law or the Constitution. And it's unfortunately been a lot. It's been a lot more than the first Trump administration, when we also had to sue him a lot, but this has been a lot more, unfortunately. And it's really, the themes have developed, shall we say. So themes have developed. I think at this point, the most common way that the president wants to violate the Constitution is he's dying to be a congressman instead of the president. He wants to spend the taxpayers' money. He wants to do Congress's job. And that's not his job. Congress has a job, he has a job. He wants to encumber grants that Congress has made by saying, oh, in order to get this grant, you have to sign this piece of paper that says you're going to do XYZ relating to immigration agenda or DEI agenda, whatever agenda he has. That's not how it works. That's not what Congress intended. Sometimes he'll just stop giving us the grants. Solar for All. Our wonderful Senator Bernie Sanders created the Solar for All program, $7 billion nationwide. Not surprisingly, this program was for us. I mean, he's our senator. He designed it so that we would benefit. So it's, lower income people who are going to be able to install solar panels on their roofs of their houses. $66 million coming to Vermont. As we know, in rural areas, people aren't on gas. They don't have the benefit of a cheap fuel. They're on propane. Which, footnote, we have a lot of rules and laws relating to propane. So I'm going to come back to that. But if you ever have a neighbor or yourself in the trouble with propane and you can't pay for it or it's whatever, I want you to call my office, and I'll talk about that later. But this would help those homeowners with solar power. And the president just said, no, we're not going to give you that money. We had to sue over that. The other thing that he likes to do is the tariff. That's another job that wasn't his job. That's Congress's job. And he wanted to do that job. Winning that lawsuit last Friday, that was humongous. Huge, huge win. And it was the attorneys general. There was multiple people sued, and they consolidated all of our cases. So a nonprofit businesses in Vermont were part of that, and we sued. Huge victory, and I was actually feeling very chuffed because I think maybe February 1st, January 30th, like really 2 weeks after Donald Trump was sworn in, Becca Balint, our wonderful congresswoman, had a press conference in the State House, and she invited me to go, and I was like, okay, cool. I think I'd sued like 3 or 4 times by that point. And Bob Kinzel of Vermont Public was like, you know, Charity, and everyone came. It was like kind of intense, and there was like packed room in the Cedar Creek room. And Bob Kinzel said, Charity, are you worried? You know, he sort of laid out the reasons why we would be worried. And I stood up, I got to the microphone, and I just was like, this is kind of a crazy moment for our country. I'm thinking in my head, how do I respond to this? And I said, I'm just going to say what's in my heart. And I was like, I'm not, because I believe in America, and I think our systems are going to hold. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but I'm not. I believe in America. And I was vindicated last week. I was so excited. I was like, aha, because people were understandably really worried, and for good reason. We have not won them all. But guess what? We have won about 95% of them after the tariffs lawsuit. Yes, I know. The other thing that I would, other than what I've already mentioned, violating Americans' data privacy or just having disregard for our data privacy. And some of that is related to the concern about immigrants that Donald Trump has that is such a misfit for the problems we have here in Vermont, which is low population, and we're not replacing ourselves. And wouldn't it be nice if we had more immigrants? Like, that would be a great problem to fix rather than make worse. Voter disenfranchisement is also a theme. We are so lucky to have a wonderful Secretary of State. Sarah Copeland-Hansis is such a dedicated worker. She's been a public servant for 20 years more, and we work closely and we're friends. She's great. She got sued by the federal government for not turning over the voter rolls. Guess who's defending her? It is me. Yay! So, and I'm just proud. We don't have to worry. I know, who here was at town meeting yesterday or Monday night? Probably a lot of us. I always talk about my town clerk in Williston. She is so amazing. She knows everyone. There's 10,000 people who live in Williston. Literally saw my friend in the grocery store and was like, hey, Erin, I think Stevie the dog's license is up soon. Like, she just like remembers everyone. Our town clerks are doing a great job. Our justices of the peace are doing a great job. I'm really not worried about voter, making sure that our vote counts and voter integrity here in Vermont. I think that it's going to be okay in Vermont. I'm worried about other places. I'm sure you are too. But we're focusing on what we can control, which is in Vermont. So I throw that out there. I would say that the other theme we see is that things that Donald Trump has done, he's trying to expand the power of the executive branch of himself, basically. And lots of the other things he has done that we aren't really involved with show that, bullying law firms and trying to get them to do what he wishes. Ditto with universities, powerful universities, right? Is he coming after, teensy tiny universities no one has ever heard of? Of course not. That would not be his style. He wants to expand his own power. Even like renaming the Gulf of Mexico or Mount McKinley, it's like he's trying to do things that a king would do, which is why the No Kings theme keeps coming up. So I want to reassure you that every time the Constitution is violated or federal law is violated, I will absolutely be there filing a lawsuit along with my like-minded attorneys general in other states. And people, I've been asked that, how do you prioritize? I don't prioritize. I sue every single time. And that's the way it is. Unless the person, like the nonprofit or the university or whoever being impacted doesn't want us to, for whatever reason, I would say okay. But otherwise, we're joining because we're protecting the system. It's not necessarily about the issue or the, frankly, tens of millions of dollars that we've pulled back to Vermont thanks to our victories in these lawsuits that illegally withheld funds are now flowing back to Vermont. I'm proud of that, but we're preserving the system that we all love, known as the United States of America. And what an honor it is for me to be able to do this work. I want to make sure I didn't forget all of the things I wanted to say. can I just linger a bit over the law? So when we first started filing these lawsuits, the way that a lawsuit goes is first you lay out the facts and the law, and then at the end it's like count 1, violation of the Consumer Protection Act, or whatever it is, and you sort of, everything comes together and it's all very persuasive and very clear, like, oh, they told us the law, they told us the facts, and now here it is, the reason why they're suing. So when I get the lawsuit draft, I'm like, I flip to the end, I want to find out what the counts are, and then I work my way backwards. And early on I realized, well, these are all the same. It's like violation of, and all of the same federal statutes and the same portions of the Constitution. So I'm going to let you, because this is about learning today, I know you're here to learn, so I'm going to let you peek in my thinking. So there is one federal law that President Trump has always loved to violate. He did during his first administration. It's called the Administrative Procedures Act. It tells the administration basically how to conduct business, like how to do their jobs. Because the administration is not in the, it's part of the executive branch. It's like power comes from the presidency. And so the statute lays out in detail how things are done. And so sometimes if they change a rule, there needs to be a comment period or whatever the thing is, President Trump doesn't like paying attention to that. He wants to do his own thing, his own way, so he's always violating that act all the time. Then there's multiple constitutional violations. The spending clause says it is Congress who gets to spend the taxpayers' dollars. Then there's a clause, it's literally called the take care clause, like capital T, capital C, take care clause. It's because it uses that phrase that the president will take care to basically follow the laws as Congress intended. Like you're not allowed to make up your own laws. Congress gets to pass the laws. He violates that one a lot. Then there's it's not in the Constitution, it's like an equitable remedy, and it's in Latin, it's called ultra vires, and it's, you can't do stuff outside of the powers you were given. And he's violating that one a lot too. I feel like there's another one. Oh, separation of powers. That's another one he's like absolutely loving to violate. Another job I feel like he wanted was governor, because he's always trying to do the governor's job too, like deploying the National Guard, getting involved in like public safety stuff. Public safety was given to the states. That's our job. You know, education, it's another one. It's given to the states. I mean, we have federal stuff, but the profile is much smaller, which is why yesterday we were voting on our own school budgets. Like, it's very localized. But he wants to do that stuff too. So it has been a wild ride, to say the least, the past year. But I will say, as the cases have gone on, it's been very gratifying to see that even the Supreme Court upheld laws I did not think that they would. Upholding the Obergefell status quo of gay marriage is a thing in this country I was warning people, I don't think that's going to go our way. And I was like I was overjoicing with that. Of course, we'll always be safe in Vermont because we have wonderful legislature here who protects us with passing things that allowing us to vote to enshrine the right to abortion in our Constitution. That started in the legislature, of course, and the right for people to be married regardless of their sexual orientation. By the way, does anyone want to hazard a guess in what percentage of towns in Vermont did the majority of voters vote to enshrine the right to abortion in the Constitution? Does anyone want to hazard, like, what percentage of the towns in Vermont? 95. Anybody think it's higher than 95? We got some nods. It's 100%. Literally. Every town. And let me tell you something. When I won my primary in 2022, I look at all the towns, and I'm like, oh, I've got a lot of cousins in this town. They really liked me there. And there was a town in the Northeast Kingdom, Victory. It doesn't have that many people who live there, so I got 100% of the votes, too. I'm sure it's like a married couple, and they're like, we like Charity Clark, and that was it. I got all of them. That was all the Democrats in that town. Even those towns in the Northeast Kingdom, they don't even have that many Democrats. I mean, even they are voting to enshrine the right of abortion in the Constitution. Like, we are so lucky. I'm bragging about that all the time. Never going to stop. I'll keep bragging about it when I'm old. Something that I hear a lot of when I travel around the state, and I do a lot of public forums. People will invite me or will say, oh, we're going to a town, do you want to have a public forum? And people always come up to me and afterwards, and they're like, oh, Charity, I feel so reassured. talking to you. And I always say, well, I think it's because I'm a lawyer. I don't think I'm a mom, maybe that's it too, but I'm reassuring because I know the law and I believe in the law. And that is, my reassurance it's not, I'm not being false. I really believe that this is all gonna be not great, but it's not gonna fall apart and unravel. So I hope that has, provides you with some comfort. We have to remember that our entire government was based on protecting itself from a tyrant king, right? And it's getting a real big test right now, and I think that we're seeing it pass. And of course, the congressional midterms are around the corner. The most important moment in this president's tenure is the congressional midterms. We remember in 2018 when the Democrats took over the House, and then Nancy Pelosi came out of the White House afterwards, and she was wearing that like rust-colored coat, and she put her sunglasses on and her hands in her pocket, and it was just like, we back, baby. Just like this comforting feeling. I really hope that's going to happen again with a new speaker, a new Democratic speaker. If you're feeling uneasy, I recommend volunteering in another state, in like a purple district in another state. We have a great representation in Washington. We don't need to worry here in Vermont. But there are some purple districts where they don't really have the best representation. Why not adopt that district? Donate money, go volunteer, knock on doors, like show support. It's, that can be your person you're supporting to make sure that they get elected. I love doing that with the AGs. Like the AG of Kansas is Chris Kobach. Oof, boy. And the Democrat is such a good guy. He's a former police officer, Chris Mann. I really like him. And he lost in 2022 by only like 1 percentage point. So I'm hoping he's going to win. And we just gained another seat. There's now 24 Democratic attorneys general, and we're all working together on the issues. We don't always agree. We don't always join the lawsuits, but it's really nice to have that collaboration. I can't even imagine what my life would be like if we didn't have that, because we don't have to write all the lawsuits. We just write our part, and all the work is so efficiently done. And we have so much to be grateful for to the big states like Washington and California and New York and all of the lawyers there who are helping us do the work of protecting the states. So there you have it. That is what I prepared to talk to you about. Oh, one thing, the Consumer Assistance Program I promised to tell you about. The Consumer Assistance Program, I was asked to address, how my office impacts Vermonters. And the Consumer Assistance Program is the way that most Vermonters interface with my office. Doing a time check. The Consumer Assistance Program is a free service that you can call if you have a consumer problem. So you buy the electric blue suit and it's not quite what you expected and they won't take it back. Well, you can call for help. Most of the complaints we get are much more expensive than a suit, but they don't have to be. And keep in mind, you might be frustrated and maybe it's not that much money, but when you are helping protect consumers like yourself, you're protecting the marketplace. You're communicating to the business that you can't do that. Someone else is getting taken advantage of too. And so I encourage you, if you run into trouble, to act. You can always call the Consumer Assistance Program. They're located at the University of Vermont, which is really cool. So you call, you might end up talking to like a 19-year-old, which is great, fun. And if you ever have, like I said, a propane complaint, call the Consumer Assistance Program and they will help you. We will resolve it in a day, because propane being like a life or death situation for someone in the winter, one person, Margaret, is assigned propane, and when a propane complaint comes in, she literally drops everything and just deals with that complaint until it's resolved and the person's heat is turned back on. So any kind of consumer, with your car, with whatever it is, you call. If you feel you've been scammed or want information about scams, you can call the Consumer Assistance Program. I don't see we're equipped with pens, so I'm not going to give you the 1-800 number, but you can find it on our website or just Google the Consumer Assistance Program, and they're wonderfully helpful. So I wanted to mention that as well. And I would be more than happy to answer questions. I'd love to see what questions you have. Yes? So what happens after we win a lawsuit? Or we might not win the whole lawsuit. The win might be a preliminary injunction. So the status quo is preserved, and the cuckoo crazy thing that the Trump administration wants to do is not going to go into effect until he wins the lawsuit, right? So it could be either one of those things. So early on, we were worried, everyone was worried, that the judge would say, you lose Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will say, haha, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway. And what we have found is that's not what happens. They foot drag. So sometimes we have to file a motion to enforce, which says to the judge, hey judge, remember you said he lost? Well, look, now he's doing this. Can you fix this? And the judge will be like, hey. And eventually they always comply. So it doesn't make the headlines, but they eventually always comply. And then they'll find some other project, and we have to sue over that. So we're just, and by the way, we didn't go to law school because we don't like suing people. We love it. So just keep at it, fine. You know, twist my arm. I'll bring a lawsuit against you, my man. Like, that's why we went to law school. We love it. We're having a ball suing, making all these lawsuits. So, you know, it's no skin off our, whatever that expression is. Okay, up here.
So does the lawsuit start with some, and once you have, gone through the case and it's presented to you,
Mm-hmm.
then what happens next? Where does it go, and does it go just become a threat that's then responded to, or what are the steps that goes through?
For the lawsuit that we file. So so the way that it works is the AGs, we're talking to each other all the time, the Democratic AGs. So far, no Republicans have joined us, but they've been literally tempted. Like, I've talked to someone on the phone, and they're like, oh my gosh. And every once in a while, you'll see like some big splashy thing will happen, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, actually they changed their minds. I guarantee you it's because the Republicans of all stripes are like, please don't do this. But all the Democrats, we get together, our staffs are getting together, and we might be identifying like, oh, what's this crazy lawsuit, or this crazy tariff thing, or whatever it is. Is there a case here? Is this a violation of anything? And then we will have lead folks, so 2 or 3 AGs will be lead, and we rarely are because we don't have the people power to be the lead. And then it will say who wants to join on to this lawsuit, who wants to be a part of this. And so we will talk with whoever's impacted here and get the facts of like, how are we harmed? Sometimes we don't join because we weren't harmed. Like early on, there was a lawsuit we didn't join on hospitals not performing gender-affirming care. And our hospitals were performing gender-affirming care. We had no lawsuit. We would just get kicked out of court. Anyway, I'm telling you the long version. So we file the lawsuit. They have 30 days to respond, or 60 days depending on the situation. Sometimes we will file right away, or a few days later, a motion for preliminary injunction. We don't always do that, but we often do to stop the harm, to say like, and to win, this is why those are so good. To win one of those motions for preliminary injunction, you have to show that there's irreparable harm, and you have to show that we're likely to win. So the judge is literally saying, I think the states are going to win, which is very reaffirming. And I think that's also why sometimes Donald Trump will just give up in a lawsuit. It's like you never hear about the lawsuit again because he's like, oh, we're going to lose this one. Let's pick another crazy lawsuit or crazy situation that we'll get sued over. So we're just in this like dance of suing. And then sometimes the appeal. So that's how it gets to the Supreme Court. We have 3 appellate levels, at least in Vermont. So the District of Vermont is our federal court that's here in Vermont, like Rutland, Burlington, Brattleboro, I think they still have one. And then it goes to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and the whole country is divided into circuits. So we're divided with New York and Connecticut. We're in the Second Circuit. The court itself is physically located in New York City. So if we have to argue in front of that court, we have to go to New York City. And then after the Second Circuit, it goes to the United States Supreme Court. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court's kind of busy, so they're not going to take all your cases. And that's helpful because it keeps the status quo if they don't take the case. So that they've done that too, and it's kind of a win, right? So that's the journey of one of our lawsuits. And they are, I mean, we still have lawsuits. Joe Biden left office. He'd already been there for 4 years, and we still had lawsuits from Donald Trump 1. Some of these lawsuits last a really long time, too. That's another reason why the preliminary injunction is gold. Yes?
What happens with the whole federal state thing when you just mentioned, for example, Vermont has gender-affirming legislation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So say Congress decided, it's not so far off, if Congress would pass a law, House and Senate, the President signs, no gender-affirming care for anyone who is a lady. Where does that, what happens then to the hospitals in Vermont?
Yeah.
That whole federal state.
So we would, okay, yes. So the question is, what if the federal legislature, right, Congress, passes a law that's contrary to a law that we have here in Vermont? And how does that fall out? Well, First, as a state's lawyer, I would be looking for an opportunity to say, you can't do that, we get to keep doing what we want to do, right? So I would look at the details. So this depends a lot on the wording and everything. But by and large, if, for example, instead of Roe v. Wade, we had the opposite of Roe v. Wade, instead of nationwide, the Congress was like, there is no right to an abortion and abortion is murder, we would not be protected. There's only so much we can do. I mean, again, depending on the details, I'm going to footnote that and say we would look to see if it was done properly. I also think that the country would grind to a halt. So it would be a disaster if they did that. But yeah, that is a real tension and an area why it's so nice that we have the sovereignty of the states, because it's kind of like we can survive here in Vermont, even though in other states they're doing things differently. We don't agree with them, but we can keep going on because here in Vermont we're safe. And by the way, we're benefiting because I'm sure probably everybody in this room has a friend, a neighbor, or someone in your town who you know moved here because they're gay or because they have a trans kid or whatever. I have multiple friends who moved here because this was a place where they would be welcomed and where they would feel safe. So, we benefit from our values being well known and being the way that they are too. I feel like there's a lot of more questions. Yes. Yes, I know. Birthright citizenship was the very first case we filed because we knew it was coming. So it wasn't, we kind of were already thinking about it. That was a case that New York led, and people in New York are so intense. The lawyers literally just didn't sleep. They just worked through the night, and it was like Donald Trump was inaugurated, and 36 hours later, we were filing a lawsuit. It was like, wow. I was like, wow. And I don't know that in Vermont we would have been that intense about it. But yeah, we sued right away. The other kind of amazing thing about that is the Attorney General of Connecticut, who's probably one of my best friends among the Attorneys General, William Tong, is Chinese American. He has birthright citizenship for a time his father was undocumented. So it's kind of remarkable that someone who is so great that his state chose him to be the Attorney General, and he's doing a great job. He's been AG for like 8 years. He's awesome. Has birthright citizenship, and thinking about, of course, so many people do. I'm going to look at my my list. I knew you were going to ask me about this. So Carly brought me the printout of all of our cases and what the status is. So there's something specific here. This is a list that we have on our website. If you're curious about any of the lawsuits, you can go to the Attorney General's website, so just Google. It's ago.vermont.gov, but you can just Google. And on the landing page, there's a button that's a picture of an American flag. So if you click on that, it will take you to a very long chart that's in order of time it was brought. So we have our update on birth. It was the first case, so it was easy to find on my chart. It's the very first one. It would be easier if I brought my glasses, but. So we got the preliminary injunction on that, so we're at a status quo, and the case is proceeding. And it went to the First Circuit, and it upheld the preliminary injunction motion. That's my latest update on that. So, and we have this arguments in front of the Supreme Court, so probably waiting for a decision. That seems like a long time ago, though. May? Does anyone know if this has been decided? I feel like I got to Google this. I think it's there, and it's taking time. Yeah. So we won the preliminary injunction, which is always good, right? We love our PIs, and we made oral argument last May. Oh, I remember that. I think the New Jersey Solicitor General is the one who made the argument, and we were like, it was hard. We had to vote because it was like, this is really cool. Who's it going to be? We want to have our strongest person. He was really good. I remember that now. So we'll find out soon enough. Yes. Yes. I know. It's bad. It's bad, but it's not as bad as I was expecting. Amy Coney Barron has really surprised me. Oh, sorry. The question is, yes, presidents come and go. Even this one has left once. Hopefully he'll leave again. But Supreme Court justices are there for a long time, and they're all really young. It's a disaster. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat it. It's a disaster. I have been pleasantly surprised by some of the decisions. I will say reassuring things I can say about this. Lawyers like rules, and judges are lawyers. They don't like all the violations. They're not enjoying this. I mean, they might have philosophical and social ideas that are different from the average Vermonter, but they're still lawyers and they like rules. Someone just came up to me, gosh, where was I, at church? I can't remember, like a few days ago, came up to me and said they were worried about the Supreme Court weighing in on issues that say you can't vote unless you have your maiden name, that your birth name matches. And I was like, Amy Conant Barrett is going to decide not to vote? Like, no, there's the ladies on the Supreme Court are not going to think this is a good idea, right? Like, to think about stuff like that, you're like, okay, they're far to the right of me, but they're not that far to the right of me, I hope. But yes, that is a concern. The election is a concern. Obviously, we want to have a fair election, and that is a concern because we have like proof of an appetite to not have a fair election. So we all have to keep talking about it, shining lights on it, and making sure that we have a fair election. Yes? Yeah. So the question is about our tax dollars and how sometimes it feels like we're not very excited about how our tax dollars are being used. Well, keep in mind, it is Congress who spends our money. They're the ones. So I know it doesn't feel great because it's like, well, Bernie Sanders and Peter Welch and Becca Balint they're great. I mean, I think they're probably a little more liberal than most Vermonters, the three of them. And they're great. I feel so comfortable having them. And they're wonderful constituent services. They're awesome. I know I'm always saying kind things about everybody, but they really are great. There's other people who are not so great. And I don't think that they're using our money for the best resources. And it is disconcerting. But I always just say, what can I control? You know, I can make sure I'm supporting the candidates I like, but there's only so much that I can do. I know that's not the most reassuring thing, but if you feel yourself spinning out sometimes, I do that. I'm like, okay, what can I control? Because it is their job to spend our money. Yes, the question, a follow-up question from the same guest was, well, is the president not actually spending the money the way he's supposed to? You're right, he's not. That's why we keep suing him. That's by far our most common case, is he's not spending the money Congress told him to spend. And the Republicans, most of them are not excited about this either. They got to get reelected in the fall, and all the cool benefits people like are being taken away. And then there's a lot of drama with tariffs and the economy, and that's destabilizing. A lot of the promises, I mean, not to say anything about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not even going to get into Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, things are not going smoothly for the Trump voter, especially the one who's a moderate and not really MAGA and didn't really want to have to vote this way and did anyway, and I think a lot of them feel betrayed by the shenanigans. Yes?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm from Maine. I'm not from Vermont, and so you are new to me.
Okay.
And your voice is new to me. And as a speech and debate teacher,
Oh.
I need to say your pace is awfully fast.
Okay.
Your grasp of the issues is broad, and you are tempted to point out every butterfly to your audience. But that is not communication that lasts.
Okay, good tips.
In order to do communication that lasts, you must simplify, slow the pace, and take deep breaths.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. My daughter does speech and debate and wants me to take her to the finals in Virginia. So I appreciate you. Yes.
When are you going to run for president?
When are they moving the capital to Vermont? Yes.
On 60 Minutes this past Sunday, there was a segment about the federal judges and the onslaught of the cases that you brought against them. And I thought, oh, it's going to be an old, four-year judges that overworked. But no, it was about the amount of vitriol
Uh-huh.
and about the number of death threats
Mhm.
that they received. And I was just wondering if any of that come your way also.
The question is commenting about how on 60 Minutes on Sunday, they were kind of teeing up the article about the lawsuits that the federal judges are having to preside over. And really it wasn't about the lawsuit, it was about the vitriol and the hate and the death threats that they're receiving from people. And the question was, have I received some of that? What I have received is an overwhelming response of thank you notes, literal thank you notes, not just emails, actual notes that say thanks. And we did have 3 bulletin boards, like giant ones this big, and it was getting ridiculous, and we finally decided that it was too much and we needed to just consolidate. So now we have one board of our favorites. People like making cards and saying thank you. And the lawyers who work on our federal work are the same lawyers who work on constitutional issues, like when the legislature passes a law and we have to defend a lawsuit relating to it. And they are right by the bulletin board, so they get to see everyone thanking them for their work because they're doing this work too. Sometimes people say mean things about me online. It's not connected with this though. It's just ongoing. So I have a whole, I screenshot them on my phone, so I have a whole file, and it gives me a chuckle when I read them. I have a few favorites that are hilarious, but I'd like to share with you, if you'll receive it, my all-time favorite. My all-time favorite, this had to have been a bot. I put an ad on Facebook when I was running in 2022 that was like, vote for me, I'm for environmental, protection and protecting consumers and public safety. Right, who doesn't want to vote for that lady? Real plain vanilla stuff. And someone wrote in the comments, wait, I think I have it memorized. I don't like the way you talk with your teeth showing. You're gonna lose. Why you are. Don't like your teeth. That was so good. Oh my God. All-time favorite. No, I'm never gonna top that one. It was so funny. So yeah, once in a while, yes.
I have a question that this is outside of your work, but the shadow docket, the Supreme Court, what the heck is that? Why can it be?
I can't even begin to. I mean, I can't even begin to answer that because I'm not an expert on that, so I think I have to decline to answer it. There's a lot that goes on. The question was about the shadow docket at the Supreme Court. I don't have the information, but yes, that's an issue we hear about. Yes?
Thank you so much. I've been reading a lot about the surveillance state.
Yeah.
And stuff about Oracle, our Silicon Valley folks, Cambridge Analytica is past, but that idea, Doge, of course, Elon Musk, how we got all our personal data and has moved it to wherever he's moved it. What do we need to be worried about?
So the question is about basically our private data, the surveillance state. I am obsessed with this issue and have been since 2020. Obsessed. Obsessed. It's because I'm a Vermonter. And I feel like everybody should just be free to do whatever they want. Everyone should just mind their own business. Everything would be a lot better. And I hate the idea that my data is supposedly owned by anybody other than me. That my face should be owned by anybody but, or my DNA, by anybody but me. And that is really what is at the heart of this. It is about making money. And companies, making money off of, for example, face mapping every person in the world in a database, and then ostensibly using that database for public safety. Well, I don't feel safe, I'm getting spied on, I don't know about you. And making money off of that. Am I getting a cut? You put my face in your database, am I getting a cut? No, I don't want my face in your database. Collecting our private information and then using it for what? I don't want my writings, for example, being used to educate an AI. We are at a point in this country where we're deciding where the line is. Sometimes when technology happens, the philosophy around where our values are is either late to catch up or it's happening. It's happening right now. If you care about this issue, you can get involved because I'm always advocating for a data privacy bill in the legislature. That has not ended. And there's one that just passed out of, I think, the committee, could have been the body, about our data privacy when it comes to genetic data. Because 23andMe is a company that filed for bankruptcy And they're arguing that their asset is our DNA we gave them when we got the service done to see what our DNA was. And that is crazy to me. So by the way bankruptcy works, we don't get to pick who's the new owner, supposedly, of our data. It could go to who knows what nefarious outfit that's using our DNA to do God knows what. We need laws to protect us. There are laws in other states, and we lack them because the legislature, and I love them, but they have failed grossly, the Senate in particular, in this arena. They have not passed data privacy protections for Vermonters, and I'm pulling out my hair. It literally makes me bananas. So I care very passionately about this. One last thing, there's a couple of books I would recommend if you're interested in this. Susanna Zuboff is a professor who wrote one about like the surveillance capitalism. But the one that is so well written, it's about Clearview AI, and it's called Your Face Belongs to Us. It's by a New York Times reporter, Kashmir Hill, Kashmir with a K, Kashmir Hill. I loved it. It's very readable, and I learned a lot about AI and about the history of like data privacy. So I really recommend that book. More questions? Oh, yes.
I was so happy to hear that you brought up the issue of PCB, and I've been following that issue for a long time. And I wanted to thank you for originally filing the lawsuit against Monsanto based on the idea that they knew it was toxic and they went ahead, just like Exxon knew about the effects of fossil fuels. Um, this was the law that the Vermont legislature passed about PCB was the first of its kind in the nation. Okay, so there's been a lot of testing done, and but there are a lot of schools left that were built before 1980, which is when PCB was banned, that have not been tested. And this year, the Vermont House is about to pass a bill that would pause the funding. There's not money left. There's $4 million left, which is nothing, relatively. And that will be used to help remediate schools that have already been tested. Okay, so the lawsuit was filed in 2023, and I have used that chart to try to follow it, and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to suggest different forms of funding that, oh, so this bill would only defund it for 1 year. Okay. But during that year, there are all these schools that haven't been tested that were built before 1980.
Yes.
So you could have a woman who is a teacher who is pregnant who would be exposed to high PCB levels for 1 year.
Yes.
And PCB does cause the blood-brain barrier affect the fetus. So, or a woman or anybody who has been a long-time teacher who has
Yep.
been exposed in a particular classroom. So my question is, sorry
Yeah.
to go on like this, but is there any way that you could join the conversation or the decision by anticipating an outcome or when an outcome would possibly be so that
The testing can
complaints would
continue.
stay out?
So the question is about the PCB testing program that was set up by the legislature. It's almost run out of money, and not all the schools have been tested yet for PCBs. So I do work with the legislature on that by statute. One of the many jobs of the Attorney General is she gives advice to the legislature. So I do work with them on that, and they're aware of our case, of course. The case is set to go to trial early next year, I think. Actually, no, it's sooner than that. But you can't have all the schools at the same time. So they're doing piecemeal, like 6 schools and the next 6 schools. So there's like the beginning. What I have found in my experience is that these cases rarely go to trial. When the trial begins, there's this awareness of, okay, the uncertainty is bad for corporations. Everybody wants to settle on terms that are favorable to them. And also what happens through all of the years leading up to the trial is you get a real sense of how valuable your case is or isn't. And so you're thinking, I think my case can get this much. And the other side is thinking, I think we're going to have to pay this much. And a mediator will help you get in the middle. We rarely go to trial because of that. And going to trial is very expensive and risky, so it's not the best option. So we are coming up on a moment where we're going to have more clarity about that. We're totally aware of the testing program running out of money, which we can't come up with the money until the our office can't help with the money. That's not what we do. But when we settle the lawsuit or when we go to trial and win, we will be able to bring dollars that will help. But it's the legislature's responsibility to kind of figure out how to pay for that program. More questions? Yes. Yes, question about Trump wanting to stop mail-in voting. Well, again, Donald Trump, did you want to be Secretary of State of one of the states? Because it is the states who get in charge of elections. That's the way it goes. And he just ran for the wrong office. I feel so bad for him. No, that's not how it works. So he is a wish list, and it's just better luck next time. But Sarah Colpin-Hansis is in charge of elections in our state, and we're going to have mail-in voting. That's what the legislature decided, and that's who should decide it. That's the way the Constitution works. Yes?
What was your favorite course in law school and how have you followed it?
Oh, I love this question. What was my favorite course in law school? Oh, I loved property. I had a very cool dynamic professor who was really interesting, and I liked property. Sorry, the question was my favorite course in law school. I liked property because I felt that it was one of those topics where public policy was always afoot, and I gravitated towards those classes. I like tax, I know, but it's so interesting because that's literally how you express your values as a country, is like how you're taxing people. And my tax professor just wrote a book. I'm reading it literally with my kid before bed. She has her book, I have my book, and it's called The Second Estate, how the American tax code created a new aristocracy. And it's so interesting. I'm loving it. I also loved this class, federalism. And no surprise, right, that I thought of it many times. But I focused on the federalism of the European Union, which is so interesting. They have a system just like ours. I'm sure we inspired them, except instead of states, they have nation states, Germany, France, et cetera. But it's still federalism, where they have a federal government, the EU, and then they have their state, their nation state government. It's really interesting stuff. That was a good question. Thanks for letting me go back in time. Oh, Edie. Okay, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yes, last question.
From what you said, it sounds like you appear in federal court a lot more often than in state court. I'm wondering, in the past 3 years as AG, have you ever appeared in front of the Vermont Supreme Court, and how often do you appear in federal court?
We are, personally, the AG doesn't do that. The reason why is because I'm sort of managing the office, and I've picked people who are excellent at that. Now, if I had experience, if I was the best person in the office to do that, I would. I get these jobs because I like talking to groups. So I'm the best person for this job. We do appear before I just went to the swearing in of Justice Drescher, our newest Vermont Supreme Court Justice, so it's very exciting to be there for that. And I was thinking, yeah, we're here all the time. We were just there earlier that day. I went to the swearing in, and I was thinking someone from my office was just there earlier in the day. And we are in federal court as well. And then state court, either in Burlington or Montpelier, often, our criminal lawyers are kind of all over. Most of the cases my criminal division does are those internet crimes against children cases, so sexual assault, sexual abuse material cases, protecting children, and they're in counties all over the state. So I'm happy to hang out and stay for a little while if other people have questions, and thanks so much again for having me.